Toyota, Dunlop, Sasol, and of course, Volkswagen. The South African National Rally Championship has featured some iconic events over the years. The Castrol Rally, for instance, was arguably the greatest of them all, while the Sasol has been the scene of many epic battles over the years. But few rallies have the depth of lore and legend of the Volkswagen Rally, with its spectacular stages in the Longmoor Forest. Welcome to Round 5 of the 2015 Championship. Welcome to Port Elizabeth. Welcome to the Volkswagen Rally. This year's Volkswagen, as the event is popularly known, featured a new, more compact layout than in recent years. While a number of the iconic Longmoor stages were retained, the organisers opted for a more spectator-friendly rally itinerary, featuring the Port Elizabeth Oval as well as the famous Aldo Scribbanti racetrack. The result was a great spectator turnout, not only for the rally itself, but also for the scrutineering of the race vehicles, which took place on the Thursday evening before the start of the event. Scrutineering is normally a drab formality where the stewards of the sport inspect each rally car to ensure that it conforms to the necessary safety standards and specifications according to the rules of the sport. But in recent months, the South African Rally Commission has made scrutineering a spectator-friendly event, and in Port Elizabeth, the organisers added a fun wheel-changing competition, which saw the winners attend the rally as VIP guests of Volkswagen. In the end, however, the crews were in the friendly city to contest Round 5 of the championship, and as such, it was the stages themselves that really mattered most. The event consisted of a total of 12 stages, with 6 being run on the Friday and 6 more on the Saturday of the event. But the weather in that part of the country is unpredictable at the best of times, and as has been the case in the past, played a major role in the outcome of the event. But let's not put that cart before the horsepower. The South African National Rally Championship makes provision for a number of different classes, with Class S2000 featuring 4-wheel drive rally monsters with normally aspirated engines of 2 litres. These machines are generally the domain of factory teams, with some well-supported privateers also in the mix. For those new to the sport, or those with more modest budgets, Class S1600 is the way to go. This class is contested by a group of highly motivated and skilled crews who push their front-wheel drive rally cars to the very edge of reason, despite having engines of no more than 1,600 cc's under their bonnets. Class S1600 is a fiercely contested battleground and has seen 3 different winners over the course of the first 4 rounds of the championship. As a result, the top 3 crews were separated by less than 10 points midway through the season, and with 16 points on offer for a win, anything could still happen. Defending champion Guy Bottrell in the Yato Toyota Etios was back in the top spot thanks to back-to-back victories on rounds 3 and 4. Matthew Vasey-Lyle, who campaigns a Fragram-supported Toyota Etios, was just 4 points adrift, with Chad van Beerden, usually behind the wheel of a Gem Sport Volkswagen Polo, a further 5.5 points behind. Paul Franken in the Manitou Polo was 4th, and Richard Leake in the ATS North City Panel Beaters Ford Fiesta exactly 16 points behind, so a win could rocket him well up the leaderboard. But the man to beat is undeniably defending champion Guy Bottrell. Together with navigator Simon Vasey-Lyle, Bottrell won all but 1 round during 2014, taking the championship with 1 round to spare. 2015 hasn't been easy with a poor start to the season, but victories in Secunda and Bella Bella have seen the crew bounce back into the lead of the championship, and at the start of the Volkswagen Rally, Bottrell was upbeat.
It's good to be back in front, but it's very tight. The points are very close still, and this is a serious rally, and I'm sure the pace is going to be very hot right from the first stage.
The Volkswagen Rally, however, is not an event to be taken lightly. And even when handled with respect, there are many variables that play a role in rallies. Reliability, preparation and luck, to name but a few. And for Bottrell, all three of them were in short supply by the end of day one of the rally. But he wasn't the only one to face an uphill battle on the 2015 Volkswagen. It all started with a surprisingly tight and technical stage known as Motherwell. At 18.5 kilometers in length, stage 1 was certainly not the longest of the event, but it served as a wake-up call to the crews in class S1600, forcing some early casualties too. First to falter was the crew of Ashley Haig-Smith and Damien Van Ass, who campaigned the AHS Ford Fiesta. The pair have been quick in the past, even fighting for championship honours, but a broken drive shaft early in the stage saw them exiting the rally shortly after starting it. Things didn't start as bleak for defending champions Guy Bottrell and Simon Vasey-Lyle. The pair got their Volkswagen rally underway with a stage win, posting a time some 4 seconds faster than Richard Leake and Rickers Ferree in the ATS North City Panel Beaters Ford Fiesta. For Bottrell, it was exactly the start he needed.
It's quite loose out there, lots of calls.
It was a bit shaky at the start, but got better towards the end.
Chad van Beerden and Nico Swartz were next fastest in their Gemsport Volkswagen Polo. They were just over a second slower than Leake, despite finding the opening stage fairly daunting.
It's quite rough, but I think for the first stage we went quite nicely.
7 seconds slower than Van Beerden, but still very much in touch with the fastest time so far, was Paul Franken and Henry Kern in the Manitou-supported Volkswagen Polo. Their time was 11 seconds slower than Bottrell's, but Franken felt he could have gone quicker. Further back, Matthew Vasey-Lyle and Schalk van Heerden, second in the championship at the start of the VW rally, had every reason to push, but their time was 17 seconds down on the time posted by Bottrell, the result of a conservative start to the event.
Yeah, I think we had an okay stage, a little bit too cautious.
AC Potgieter and Tommy de Toy were also in the mix, with Andrew Hine, Marco Himmel and Chart Conradi all making it safely through the opening stage. For Conradi, it was a welcome return to the National Rally Championship, now campaigning the ex-Ernie van der Walt Ford Fiesta with support from Silverton Engineering. The crews had to tackle the next two stages without the benefit of a service stop, so after stage 1 it was straight into the 20.5 kilometer long stage known as Jachtvlakte near Uitenhage. This testing stage was followed by the winding Mission Road stage, stage 3 of the rally, featuring another 16.5 kilometers of torture for the rally cars. Over the last season and a half, the name of Guy Bottrell has become synonymous with stage wins. If the Durbanite is still in the rally, you're likely to find him at the head of the field. And with 37 kilometers of combined stage distance between stages 2 and 3, this was a great opportunity for the defending champ to build on his early lead. One stage win and 1 second fastest time later, Bottrell had opened a gap of 7 seconds over the crew in second place. He was quietly confident at the end of the first loop of stages.
We're quite fortunate we got through nice and clean, and I think our times were reasonably quick.
The second fastest crew over the first 3 stages. Having won the opening round of the season, Franken and Kern are undeniably fast, and their performance at the start of the event clearly showed that they had every intention of taking the championship fight all the way. The pair won stage 3 in fine style, taking 8 seconds back from Bottrell in the process. A 7-second deficit after 3 stages. Not all that much on the VW rally. Young Richard Leake is another driver that has proven his abilities behind the wheel of a rally car, and he posted the 3rd fastest time on stage 3, just 4 seconds slower than Bottrell, despite damaging the front right corner of the car near the end of the stage.
Towards the end of this stage, I think we broke our right front shock.
As much as stages 2 and 3 offered opportunity to the leaders, it turned around and bit some of the other crews right where it hurt most. Van Beerden, who had started so well, suffered a broken steering arm first, and then the problem was compounded when the Gemsport Polo lost a CV joint too. Namibian Marco Himmel, with navigator Francois Squinby beside him, also suffered a broken drive shaft, forcing them to retire significantly earlier than they had hoped. Another casualty was the Volkswagen Polo of Andrew Hine and Robbie Coetzee, who found themselves spectating after their engine expired on stage 2. For the surviving crews, it was time to head to the Dunlop Service Park at the PE Racing Oval for some much-needed R&R. Rest and repair in this case. It also gave us a moment to catch up with rally leader Guy Bottrell.
Yeah, it's really tough out there. It's easy to make mistakes, and I think we're just being consistent and not making any mistakes, which is just keeping us in front at the moment.
So after the opening loop of 3 stages, it was Bottrell who led by 7 from Franken. He in turn had Leek 5 seconds behind him, so it was fairly tight at the top of the standings. Behind them followed Himmel, who had lost time due to the sideshaft problem on his Polo, and Vesi Lal, whose cautious start saw him just over a minute adrift. With the S1600 field looking like a war zone after just 3 stages, with casualties strewn across the Eastern Cape landscape, the 2015 VW Rally was quickly turning into a 3-horse race. But there were still 9 stages to come, so the fat lady hadn't even started warming up for her song. Next up was a second charge through the 20.5 kilometer long Jachtvlakte, followed immediately by a second run through the stage known as Motherwell, which had served as the opening stage earlier in the day. For Paul Franken, these 2 stages offered a supreme opportunity to close the gap to Bottrell, a task that is usually easier said than done. As it turned out, Bottrell had other plans, and the Yato driver stretched his lead over Franken by just over 20 seconds on stage 4, clearly not what Franken had in mind. Richard Leek made the most of the situation, posting the second quickest time on stage 4, setting the scene for an epic battle. But then came stage 5, and if ever there was a watershed stage in the South African National Rally Championship, this was it. By the time the dust settled over Motherwell late in the afternoon, the list of retirees had grown to include Richard Leek in the ATS North City Panel Beaters Ford Fiesta, who suffered a broken drive shaft and was forced to retire. But even more shockingly, it was defending champion Guy Bottrell whose charge was halted in its tracks when the gearbox of his Toyota Etios separated from the bell housing, leaving him stranded mid-stage. For Paul Franken, however, the news of their demise meant promotion to the top of the leaderboard.
Unfortunately, they had trouble in the stage, so we passed them, so we have the lead now.
This unexpected turn of events saw Matthew Vesi Lal and Skalk van Heerden in the Fragram Etios rocket up the leaderboard into second place, with Chad Conradi and Tion Rabi in their ex-Ernie van der Walt Ford Fiesta slotting into third place.
Chad, you're currently running in third overall.
It's a shock.
The sole surviving S1600 car beyond the top 3 was the Ricky B Volkswagen Polo of AC Potgieter and Tommy du Toit, but the pair had lost a significant amount of time due to a puncture earlier in the day. Their Polos suffered a broken caliper as a result, and they were running well behind the leading trio. They had also lost third gear, costing them more time with each new stage, so 5 stages in and the Volkswagen Rally had already shaken up the S1600 field. To make things even more interesting, there was one more stage to go before the end of the opening day. Stage 6 was an evening run around the Aldo Scribanti racetrack, using many of its access roads and boundary sections in addition to the actual racetrack. As a result, the actual stage distance was 7.4 kilometers, comprising a mix of tarmac, gravel and grass surfaces. Not easy, as S2000 driver Ernie van der Walt and navigator Greg Godrich found out. The pair were running just ahead of the S1600 field, but made a mistake coming into a 90-degree left-hander. The Vecto Petroleum Toyota Yaris rolled down a steep bank, forcing the pair to retire and showing just how hard the Aldo stage could bite. But for the crews remaining in Class S1600, things went smoothly enough. The exception was AC Potgieter and Tommy du Toit, who had to retire their Ricky B Volkswagen when the engine finally let go. With Franken now in the lead of the rally, it was down to Vesi Lal to try and close the gap. He posted a time of 5:45.2 over the 7.4 kilometer stage, but instead of making up time as he had on stage 5, the youngster lost another 4.4 seconds to the flying Franken. Conradi's time was some 14 seconds slower than that posted by Vesi Lal, but with darkness settling over the track, this wasn't ever the place to launch an attack. Day 2 of the rally was sure to offer plenty of opportunity for that. Midway through the event then, it was Paul Franken and Henry Kern who topped the leaderboard, with Vesi Lal and Van Heerden more than a minute behind. At this point, the names of Bottrell and Vesilal still appeared in third place on the leaderboard, thanks to the way retirements are handled in the sport. Conradi was up into fourth, while Leek and Faree's names were listed in fifth place. The Volkswagen Rally is known for two things: its spectacular forest stages and its unpredictable weather. And on day 2 of the event, these two characteristics were combined to offer the remaining crews a number of extremely long and technical forest stages to be run in cold and rainy conditions. And if the chaos of Class 1600 from the previous day was anything to go by, day 2 promised to separate the men from the boys for good. With that said, a number of crews who had faltered on day 1 managed to repair their cars and enter day 2 under the so-called Super Rally regulations, a set of rules that allows crews to take part on day 2 despite not completing day 1, but under heavy penalties and only half the normal points haul on offer. With that in mind, only a total of 8 S1600 crews headed to the stage known as Buffelshoek. At 10.2 kilometers, not the longest of the rally, but with the rainy conditions it was sure to test the crews nonetheless. With their steeds repaired, it was Van Beerden and Bottrell who immediately stamped their authority on the event by going faster than anyone else. This time, stage honours went to Van Beerden in the Gem Sport Volkswagen Polo, as he pipped Bottrell by 0.4 of a second. In reality, both these times were fairly academic, as neither crew was within striking distance of the leaders. Importantly then, it was Franken who posted a time of 9 minutes 18.6 on the stage, beating second place driver Matthew Vesilal by the best part of 2 seconds. Richard Leek was still in third place, even though he could only score half the points on the event due to super rallying, but even so he lost another 4 seconds to Vesilal on the opening stage of day 2. Marco Himmel and Ashley Haig-Smith both got back in the action, but for Chart Conradi, having enjoyed a great return to rallying, stage 7 spelled trouble. The wet conditions played havoc with the electrics of his Silverton Engineering Ford Fiesta, and he was forced to continue the event as a spectator. With stage 7 serving as a warm-up for day 2, it was time for the crews to tackle the first of the true Longmore stages of the event. Stage 8 was known as Sinkdam, which featured nearly 19 kilometers of twisty, muddy mayhem through the iconic forest. Winning a stage in the Longmore is a matter of pride for any rally driver, but this time it wasn't Bottrell who added another stage victory to his already impressive tally. As a matter of fact, Bottrell managed only the 3rd fastest time on the stage. Even so, with 2 great stages behind them on day 2, Bottrell had snuck back up onto the podium.
I think we found ourselves in 3rd place.
It also wasn't rally leader Paul Franken who got to add Sinkdam to his list of stage wins, though the youngster clearly didn't feel on top of his game after the first 2 stages of the day.
Last stage was a bit better.
As a matter of fact, Franken gave away more than 7 seconds to the second place crew of Matthew Vesilal and Skulk van Heerden on the stage. But then Vesilal had lost time on the previous stage, so Franken's lead was still intact.
I think we had an okay stage. It's very, very rough out there.
In the end, the stage win went to former track racer Chad van Beerden in the Gem Sport Volkswagen Polo. His time of 12 minutes 19.8 seconds was 3.2 seconds quicker than the time posted by the second fastest driver on the stage, Richard Leek. So for Van Beerden, there was plenty to be happy about. Leek, in the meantime, had surrendered 3rd place to Bottrell, as he clearly struggled to get to grips with the changing weather conditions.
So a little bit more slippery than we expected.
Stage 9 was up next and consisted of a second run through Mission Road. This was stage 3 on day 1, but thanks to the heavy rains, the 2 runs bore scant resemblance to each other. As a matter of fact, the end of the stage had been turned into a quagmire by the incessant rain, and some of the S1600 crews struggled just to make it through. Fastest man on the stage, Matthew Vesilal, who used the opportunity to bring the deficit to Franken down by 32 seconds, effectively halving Franken's lead in the process. Vesilal had a blinder of a stage, beating his nearest rival by 30 seconds, and that rival was Ashley Haig-Smith, who was well out of contention for the honours of the Volkswagen Rally. Suddenly there was a dice at the top of the leaderboard, and with a monster forest stage still to come, victory was well within Vesilal's grasp. While the bulk of the S1600 field managed to pick their way safely through the mud at the end of stage 9, there was one name that rejoined the DNF list. This time, the Yato Toyota Etios of Guy Botterill and Simon Vasilal suffered a terminally damaged engine, dropping them out of the event for good and promoting Leek back into third place in the process. The weather, the forest stages, and the vagaries inherent to the sport of rallying had certainly all played its part by the time the crews finally made it to the Dunlop service park, right next to the end of stage 9. But the rain and mud made even that reprieve an unpleasant experience. A quick look at the leaderboard confirmed that Franken still led, but now by only 31 seconds from Vasilal. Leek was 12 minutes behind, with the rest of the super rallying crews completing the top 5. And so it was time to face the stage known as PPC Ultimate, the second and final Longmore stage of the rally. But if Sinkdam was a stage with hair on its chest, then stage 10 sported hair, a beard and a shaved head. Never mind the tattoos. This was a monster. At 47.8 kilometers in length, this truly was the ultimate rally stage, to be run in the wet. For Matthew Vasilal and Skulk van Heerden in the fragrant Toyota Etios, this would be the last roll of the dice. Another big push here could see them steal the win from Franken and Kern in their Manitou Volkswagen Polo. But then again, pushing hard in conditions like these could see Vasilal lose it all. Or it could see Franken slide off the track. Anything could happen, but there could be no doubt that the stage was set. And then came the news. The final 2 stages of the 2015 Volkswagen Rally would be cancelled due to the rain making them impassable. So suddenly, stage 10 became the final stage of the event. The final showdown in the Longmore Forest. The stuff of legend, and exactly the kind of thing that makes the Volkswagen Rally as spectacular as it is. Remember, Vasilal had to beat Franken by 31 seconds or more to take the victory. But with just shy of 50 kilometers of rally distance to cover in the rain, it certainly wasn't out of his grasp. First into the stage was Paul Franken and Henry Kern, who posted a time of 35 minutes 8.9 seconds over the monstrous stage. He had clearly pushed quite hard, but even so, he wasn't particularly confident at the end of the stage.
We pushed quite hard, so I hope we did enough.
So now all eyes turned to the empty stage and the clock, waiting for Vasilal to appear. He needed to post a time of 35 minutes and 37 seconds or less to claim the top step of the podium. But even before he crossed the line at the end of the stage, it was clear that his time was way slower than Franken's.
It was a bit tricky, a bit too cautious, I think.
In the end, he lost 1 minute and 5 seconds to the Manitou crew, settling for a well-deserved second place instead. And with the final 2 stages of the event cancelled, that's exactly how things ended. Franken and Kern took the win after just 2 hours and 31 minutes of rallying. Vasilal and Van Heerden followed 1 minute 36 later, with Leek the best of the super rallying entrants. Himmel and Conradi rounded out the top 5. For Richard Leek, the third step of the podium must have felt like an impossible dream after he was forced to retire on day 1. Yet the Volkswagen Rally and its unpredictable weather put paid to the hopes and dreams of many of his fellow competitors, opening the door for Leek to sneak back onto the podium to bag some well-deserved points.
We had some good pace, but unfortunately our drive shaft broke. But yeah, after today, not too bad, quite happy.
Matthew Vasilal has gained a reputation as one of the most consistent performers in the S1600 field. The quiet young Durbanite tends to keep to himself, yet when the points are tallied, he seems to always be right there in the thick of things. With a second place and 3/3 already in the bag, his second place in Port Elizabeth put Vasilal in the lead of the S1600 Championship.
Yeah, we are quite happy. It was a very difficult rally. A lot of guys had problems, so we were quite lucky to get onto second.
The man of the moment, however, was the man from the Western Cape, Paul Franken, who drove a faultless rally to place his Manitou-supported Volkswagen Polo at the head of the field after 10 tough stages. This gave Volkswagen reason to smile on their home event and certainly contributed to them winning the Manufacturers Award. But while VW certainly had reason to smile, Franken had much more reason, thanks to his second win of the season.
We managed to have a good event, the car was great, and thanks to my sponsors.
With 5 rounds of the 2015 National Rally Championship done and dusted, the season is heading to its inexorable conclusion. With only 8 points separating the top 3 drivers in the championship, however, the fight is far from over. Next up is the Cullinan Motor Rally, which takes place on the 14th and 15th of August in the wintry dry town of Cullinan, east of Pretoria. This event has proven pivotal in past championships, and with the race for supremacy as close as it is well worth coming out to experience the next event firsthand. All the highs and lows from the 2015 Volkswagen Rally was brought to you by the South African National Rally Commission and its partners Volkswagen, Ford, Toyota, Dunlop and Sasol.